mi gente de Rochester y bienvenido a su Hora Informativa. Mi nombre es Ida Pérez y para mí es un verdadero placer poder estar con ustedes en esta mañana. Su Hora Informativa es un programa que les trae información importante que esperamos que los inspire a una mejor calidad de vida para usted y su familia. Cubrimos información sobre los campos de salud, educación, empleo, vivienda y muchos otros temas más que nos afectan como persona y como pueblo. Su Hora Informativa está aquí todos los sábados de 10 a 11 de la mañana y nos alegramos muchísimo de que estén con nosotros aquí en el día de hoy. Tuve un poquito de vacaciones, no he estado aquí especialmente con un programa, ¿verdad? Pero nos alegramos de que estén con nosotros ahora en el nuevo año y tengo el placer de tener dos invitados aquí con nosotros. I was just saying that I took a little break, a little vacation, before the new year, but I'm really happy that everyone is with us again during the new year and that I have two guests here that I'm going to ask them to present themselves, to tell us their name, where they're originally from, and how long they've been here in Rochester. And I don't know which one of you would like to start.
Well, Jamie Maldonado. I've been here, like 6 years now.
Okay.
But since I was a little kid, I've been back and forth from Puerto Rico to here.
Ah,
Yes.
that was my life too. We went back and forth several times. What brought your family here to Rochester from
I
Puerto
want
Rico?
to say initially was definitely like income.
Mm-hmm. For a better
Yes.
life. Yeah.
Yes.
What town from Puerto Rico are you from?
When I'm from Bayamón.
Okay, cool. And did you guys have family here already when your family came, or were you guys the first ones to come?
Yeah,
How did that
so
work out?
we don't have family here.
Oh,
So we
okay.
just came here just looking for like a better place to
So
be.
why Rochester of all the places in the United States?
So actually, my stepfather was already from here,
Oh,
so
okay.
he just brought my mom
Oh,
here.
okay. So
Yeah.
he had lived here before you he came
Yes,
with your stepmom.
I was like 9 years old.
Okay, cool. I was actually 9 when I went to Puerto Rico for the first time. I was born and raised here and went to Puerto Rico when I was 9, so kind of like our opposite stories
Nice.
here. In fact, they used to call me in Puerto Rico ida y vuelta because I would come and go, come and go.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. What about you, Eric?
Well, I'm originally born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Came to Rochester maybe when I was about 4.
Okay.
My dad's from Philly. My mom's from here.
Oh, okay.
So I've been in Rochester for most of my life. I did live in Colorado for 11 years, but really missed the East Coast and the green and the water. So yeah, I'm a Rochesterian.
How did your mom and dad meet? Because she was from.
Yeah, I think my dad came to Rochester,
Okay.
and then met my mom, and then they went back to Philadelphia.
Okay. And
And
what
then,
brought him here? Do you know?
I think he was trying to escape just like the violence from his neighborhood. He was getting in trouble,
Okay.
and I think he had some family in Rochester.
Okay.
And his mom said, "Boy, you're going to Rochester."
Yeah. We got to get you out of here before
Yeah.
you get in trouble.
Correct.
Cool. Where were your family from originally before they came, like to Philly and Rochester? Like, do you know where they
Yeah.
were from?
So my dad's family's from South Carolina.
Okay.
Descendants of slaves.
Okay.
My mom is French Creole.
Mm.
So Beaumont, Texas was
Mhm.
where all my family's at, which borders the Louisiana border.
Uh-huh.
And I remember growing up, whenever my aunts and them came up or we went down there,
Mhm.
like whenever the conversation got real good, it switched to French.
Yeah.
And we
cool.
didn't know any French.
Wait a minute, I want to know what's happening.
I mean, because like they would just all see us looking and boom, they switch to French. So yeah, so like my mom's generation is the last that spoke French
Oh, wow.
fluently.
Wow. Yeah.
Unfortunately, and my great uncle Goldman Thibodeau, who
Mhm.
passed in 2025, was like
Mhm.
the most respected French Creole singer in the world. He traveled the whole world. He was still
Wow.
performing at like 97 years old.
Get out of
Wow.
here.
Yeah.
That is
Amazing.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's
it is
cool.
cool. Yeah.
I always like to ask that questions because, people often complain about Rochester. It's too cold, it's too this, it's too that.
Mhm.
But, a lot of people come here and make Rochester their home.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, especially coming from Texas,
Yeah.
where it was hard for Black people to get jobs. They a lot. My grandmother and my uncle Snow came to work at Kodak
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you could get a good paying
Yeah. Yeah.
job here.
Yeah, a lot of people came to work at Kodak, Bosch and Lomb, those places like that.
Hmm.
But I like to share that because people, like I said, people complain about Rochester, but a lot of people make it their home, right? And make it
Yeah.
their whole career here, those type of things. So,
Yeah.
so I always like to, and also to show that no matter who we are and where we come from, there's always something in common among
Yes.
us, right? We all came here looking for a better opportunity, whether it was in safety, right, or economically.
Hmm.
We all have something in common. So I always like to ask that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So Eric, tell us a little bit. Why are we here today? We're going to be talking about a campaign that you guys have started. So tell us a little bit about that campaign.
Yeah. So we have a campaign called Love from the Start,
Mm.
which is, as you know, as a former early childhood specialist,
Yes.
expert,
Yeah.
trainer,
Yeah.
the early years are everything. Like birth
Yes.
to 5 shapes. I just can't stress enough
Yes.
of how much that shapes a person's entire life.
Yes.
And so our Love from the Start campaign is about raising the awareness of every adult that comes in contact with kids, whether they're your own bio kids or you
Mm-hmm.
work with kids or they
Yeah.
live near you,
Yeah.
surrounding them in a loving, nurturing, and supportive environment, and how it allows them to
Yes.
differentiate between good risks and bad
That is.
risks,
Yeah.
how to negotiate, how
Mm-hmm.
to manage and regulate their emotions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
conflict resolution,
Yeah.
all these skills that we need as children, as teens, as early adults, and
Mm-hmm.
as adults, as
Yeah.
neighbors, as
Yeah.
spouse, as
Yeah.
employees,
Yeah.
as employers.
Yeah.
Like you
As
want,
human beings.
right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so really just raising awareness
Yeah.
of the early years. And I think as adults, we can kind of forget like how important those
Yeah.
loving interactions are.
Yeah. Where did the idea come from? Because I'm sure, something must have happened that you guys were like, "Oh, wait a minute. Let's start this campaign." So where did that really come from?
Yeah, I would say part of it is from our director, Stephanie David.
Mhm.
She's a health policy lawyer, I believe. I could be saying that wrong, but she
Okay.
has a law background
Mhm.
and specializes in public health.
Okay.
And she's on the board of directors for the New York State Association of Infant Early Childhood Mental Health.
Yeah.
So I think as she learned more about that and became passionate about that,
Yeah.
it was already in alignment in what we do
Right.
around supporting families at common ground
Yeah.
of health,
Mhm.
about creating like healthy environments
Yeah.
for parents and kids. So it kind
Yeah.
of like just kind of grew into that, and then we were able to secure funding to help
Mhm.
support that
Yeah.
and raise that. Like
Yeah.
as you already know, there will never be enough therapists or mental health professionals to spread the word about infant early childhood
Yeah.
mental health. So I look at it and we look at it as like we need to raise a community that is aware.
Yeah.
Parents, teachers, educators, grandparents, librarians, rec
Yeah.
center workers. Just imagine a world where every adult understood how important those
Yeah.
early years
Yeah.
are.
I remember during COVID, as part of, getting the staff to do something right during COVID because everything was via computer, and we got a training through mental health, infant mental health, and they talked about the ghost in the
Mm.
nursery.
That was my aha
Oh,
moment.
And I remember you and I having a conversation about that, and it was really interesting. And I don't know if because of what we were going through and how we were also very vulnerable
Mhm.
at the time with COVID, not knowing what was happening, just really kind of learning what that was, right, and what that meant for us. And I remember us, having that training through Zoom. It was through Zoom, but we had the training with the staff. And again, and I don't know if it was just the time and everything that we were going through, but people became very, very vulnerable
Mhm.
during that training, and people shared some things of their childhood that
Mm.
was just, some of it very alarming, some of it really, really sad.
Mhm.
But it really opened, and I already had some understanding, right? Like you said, I've done early childhood all my life. That's been my career. But it kind of gave me a whole different perspective of people,
Mhm.
and sometimes even like their personalities or their characteristics or how they behaved in certain situations and things
Mhm.
like that. And really understanding what that meant. What did it mean to you? Because I know it did have a huge impact on you, Eric.
Yeah, it really did, but I think what I'm dealing with infant early childhood mental health right now, as you know, my father passed away on January 2nd,
Yes. I'm
and we
sorry.
didn't have the closest relationship
Mm,
as a child.
mm-hmm.
And through my training through infant early childhood mental health, I know that my dad's struggles as a father can directly be related to the trauma
Mm-hmm.
and the ghost in his own
Right.
nursery,
Right.
from childhood abuse
Yeah.
to not knowing his father,
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood violence, all these traumas, all these ghosts that were hanging on to him
Mm.
throughout childhood traveled with him through adulthood.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that actually like helped me have some compassion for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because understanding that, and then it makes me think of my own childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up in an unloving environment as far as when it came to when you were sick.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom was a single mom, young, and when you were sick, she just was not very nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to hate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going through the infant early childhood mental training
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that I brought that same trauma to my own kids. Like I'm a really good dad.
Mm-hmm.
I was really bad when my kids were sick.
Mm-hmm.
And that trauma I had as a child, I brought it right into their bedrooms. And I remember going through the training and it froze me.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I could put my finger on it that I could identify it, which then allowed me to break the chain
Mm-hmm.
and to close the door of that ghost ever coming
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so passionate about infant early childhood mental health, because we all have different ghosts in our life.
Yeah.
But if we don't have the tools to be able to identify it
Yeah.
and the skills then to be able to not allow it to like hang on to us anymore,
Yeah.
that's going to travel from us to our kids, to our grandkids, to our
Yeah.
great grandkids.
Yeah.
So we're really just trying to raise awareness about being able to identify those traumas
Yeah.
that are lingering and like hanging on to us, and then we're bringing it right to our own kids and the kids that we come in contact with.
Yeah. I remember listening to some of my coworkers, and it was hard for me to relate because, in my case, it was the complete opposite, right? Like I came from very loving parents. My mom had me when she was 42 years old.
Oh yeah, I
you
yeah, I
know
do remember
so
that.
Wow.
and my father retired by the time I was like 9 years old. He drove me to school every single day of my life. He fixed me breakfast every single day of my life.
You were the baby though. You got
Yeah,
spoiled.
so I was the youngest of nine, and he tucked me into bed every night. You know what I mean? Like I had these very different experiences from my parents. And if you were to ask my siblings, they'll probably say, "Well, we didn't experience that, right? Because they experienced them at a different time in their lives, when they were younger, when they were struggling, when they were, my dad was working 3 jobs, those type of things. So I came into their lives when they were more settled. They were stable. They were good, and so my upbringing was very very different. Like I felt, and because I had so many older siblings, I always had a lot of love, a lot of care. I remember my sister-in-law taking me every year to Sears and taking pictures of me as a little kid. Like all this. They'll buy me the cutest little dresses, and so I had a very different experience as a child that was kind of hard for me sometimes to kind of understand. Wow, this happened to this person. How fortunate was I that that didn't happen to me, right? So I can, but I can still understand, like you said, how people kind of bring this ghost with them. And as much as we try to say, I don't want to be like my parents. If you did have a bad parents, sometimes you do end up doing things that they did, and you don't even realize it, right? Like it's not until you have like an aha moment like you did, where you're like, okay, I have to do something different.
Yes.
Jamie, what was that experience for you, Mama? How did that? What happened to you?
Wow.
What?
So, so when I was very young, me and my mother, we didn't have that relationship. My mother was very quiet with me. I grew up very lonely. My sisters, they were all on their own little world. There was like a lot of trauma that my mom had went through, and definitely didn't have the right parenting. So as I grew, she did not she did not achieve those goals as a parent of wanting to like change or even noticing that she probably was doing it wrong. So for me, they say, they say that when you don't grow with that, then you don't know how to do it. So for me, when I was with my kids, they were like a little younger than now. It was about a couple years ago. And my son and my daughter, they wanted to play with me. And I was like, no, I'm tired. I don't want to do it. And I was a little mean to them. My kids' faces just like dropped and they were like so sad. I didn't have that connection with my kids. I was very strict and distant from them. Even though I wanted them to be happy, I didn't know how to achieve that. And when my kids' face that day dropped and they were like so sad, it was, to me, that was like my aha moment. I had to like self-reflect and see that I was doing something wrong. My kids weren't happy, they weren't connected to me like I would have wanted to at that time. So I went upstairs and I'm like, you know what, let's go. Let's do what you guys want to do. And they were like, their faces brighten up so fast. It was like, okay, this is what's right. So it's coming out of my comfort and what I thought was my comfort to actually be there for them as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about moms that may have, have had a baby and go through postpartum depression, which I think, can affect, right? Because you're talking love from the start, right? So meaning that if moms don't, so what are some of the things that you guys are looking, to help new moms that may go through some, I mean, I experienced it myself. It didn't last very long, but I do remember, not wanting to pick up my baby, and she was a preemie, not wanting to pick her up and not understanding why was I feeling that way. What are some of the things that you guys hope with this campaign to kind of, again, bring that awareness and help people understand, it's okay, you're feeling this way, but, your baby still needs this connection with you.
Yeah, thank you for talking about postpartum depression. I also like to raise awareness that 1 in 10 men suffer from it as well.
Look at that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's new research coming out around that. So 1 in 7 women and 1 in 10 men. So it's not that far off.
Right.
There's actually a song by one of my favorite rappers, Nas, called Book of Rhymes, where he talks about like his own struggle with postpartum depression. So men also fall into that category as
interesting.
well. Yeah. We just so what we try to do is offer tools around learning yourself and understanding yourself. We recently just did an early infant mental health training with SPCC, which I think stands for the Society and Protection of Care of Children.
Yeah.
And we did an infant early childhood mental health training for parents, and it was a parent's perspective. And really, like, first of all, you don't have to be a perfect parent. Just being present, first of all. So there's a lot of pressure feeling you have to be perfect.
I had a sign in my office that said, not presence, but present.
Yes. So that's number one. We are not asking you to be perfect. Just being present. I appreciate you raising the issue about being vulnerable. Like being vulnerable and being willing to receive new information and new skills. And an example was how Jamie was self-reflective of the way she was moving and kind of encouraging parents to be self-reflective.
And sorry. Go ahead.
And then understanding that brain development at a young age happens so fast.
Yes.
1 million neural connections are made every second in those first 4 years. 1 million. So everything your child is dealing with, they're building a roadmap on how they're going to deal with everything.
And the more interaction you have with them, the more they're connected.
Correct.
So it could be more than that.
Correct. And so I think as parents, like I think we sometimes just can with the everyday struggles of life, work, and paying bills, we can just forget that. So we encourage parents just to slow down. And just be mindful of how important those early years are and how healthy, loving, nurturing, and supportive relationships changes outcomes in everything for a child.
I want to say, I experienced it myself with my younger daughter. Before it was more like a strict command, and then I changed that into a loving, direction. And I saw the change in all of them, like how they started being bright and they started opening up. And to me, it's very, very important to have that connection with my kids now, because I didn't have it, and it was like so important to me. It affected everything in my life. So as I grew, I knew that there was something wrong. I always used to say, I want to be normal. I want to be normal. And you don't think about it that much until you're older, and you're like, wow, this affected me like through my whole life. I don't want my kids to go through that. I don't want them to be raised or traumatized in that way. I want to break that generational curse.
Yes.
Yeah, and then, I'll add something else around our campaign is about encouraging parents to take care of themselves. Like if your cup is empty, you cannot fill anyone else's cup.
Yeah.
So really encouraging parents to just relax.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, rest.
Yes.
Do things to fill your cup that then allow you to be your best for your parents. I mean, for your children. As parents, we can forget about that. I mean, I think about my own kids. I don't think I did enough of that, of like filling my cup. I was always on the go, which didn't allow me to always be what my kids needed me to be.
Yeah.
And that makes you be in the verge of spazzing. Like you don't stop and think like this is gonna affect them if I yell, if I scream, if I'm upset. Once you're so overwhelmed all the time, you're like on survival mode, and you're not thinking straight. So once you're so upset about something, it's hard to stop and think like, hold on, let me just not do this and take a moment, take a breather. I've done it plenty of times. It's not about being perfect. It's about realizing that there's some changes we can make to make our kids, be raised in a better way.
Yeah. As you guys know, or at least Eric knows, that I teach a CDA class for REOC. And one of the things that I always talk to my students about is one is the social emotional intelligence, right? Where the reflection comes in, right? Where are these feelings coming from? Why am I reacting this way to certain people? And kind of really stopping and looking at themselves and saying, okay, what can I do to change, right? The other thing that I emphasize is taking care of themselves, because childcare and raising children of in any way is hard work. Life is hard as already, and then having to care for someone that is totally dependent on you is important. And so I stress the self-care. What are you doing to self-care? What are you doing to reflect? Are you taking time every day for yourself? And are you taking time every day to reflect? One of the things that I try to do every day is at the end of my day, I say, okay, how were my interactions? Did I leave people whole? Right? Were people glad to see me? Was I kind? Was I helpful? Those type of things. And if I find that there was some flaw there, because we're not perfect, we're human, right? Then I'll try to do better the next day. And every day I try to do better. But it's important for me to say that to my students because, they're going to be dealing with other people's kids. And sometimes, depending on the child's environment at home, the only place where they may get some love and care and attention is with their child care provider, right? Whether it's a teacher, whether it's a child care provider, whether it's, the babies, whatever you want to call it, right? That may be the only person that's providing that child some love and some attention. And so I emphasize on that a lot. And we take like almost a whole, semester just to talk about that, because it's important for people to know how they're showing up. Because how you show up for that child is going to be dependent on what effect you're going to have on that child, right?
Yes.
And they say that every child needs at least one person that loves them unconditionally, right? That if they don't have anything else, they can at least go back to that one person. And a lot of times it's a teacher, a counselor, somebody that you interacted with, maybe your auntie, your godmother, right? That neighbor down the street that was always kind to you, that you can go back to and say, not everybody's bad. not everybody has been unkind to me. This person was nice to me. So it's interesting that you guys talk about those things because, those are things that I'm teaching my students, that when you walk into a classroom, you're going to be, you may be the only good interaction that child is going to have. And you're probably with that child good 6-7 hours. So make it the best that you can for that child, that when that child leaves your classroom, that they want to come back the next day, and we talk a lot about love because, like your campaign says love from the start, and love is one of those words that people often are afraid of. They don't want to talk about it. Oh, you don't bring that to work.
What does it look like?
What does it look like? That type of thing. And, but it's important to talk about that, and what I find with some of my students is they'll say, I was never loved that way, and so that also creates a vulnerable space for people to share, and start looking differently. I've had so many people say to me, it always stays with me, am I leaving people whole, right? When I finish that interaction, is that person happy that they saw me, or are they dreadful that I'm coming through the door, right? And so little things like that kind of make you think, and also, where are these feelings coming from? Why am I reacting that way? I remember one staff that, had issues with another staff, and, it was to the point where I had to call them into an office, and then I remember one of them saying, well, she reminds me of my mom. It's like, oh, okay. So then I knew that it wasn't the staff, right? It was the trigger, right? So then I had to separate them and say, okay, let's talk about your mom. What's going on with your mom that is triggering all these hard feelings that you're now lashing to this other person, because obviously she's not your mom. So just helping that person go really deep in, and sometimes that's scary, right? You don't want to go deep in. You don't want to bring to surface all of those emotions, and then how do you help people kind of deal with those emotions once they come up? Because some people may say, okay, I want to do better, I want to be different, but how do I do that? So are there any tools, any techniques, any strategies that you're helping people to be able to do that?
So for me, I like to, right now I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about my whole life, everything I remember since I was conscious. And when I read that, and then I see the difference between actual parenting and sometimes being abusive, because there's a big difference. I want to say, my mom, we're not in the best terms right now. I tried to connect to her, and she still hasn't healed that version of her.
Yeah.
So it has affected how she's parented me. But to me, I want to do it different. I have my 5 kids. I want all of them to, remember me as a good mom, as a mom that was there, loving. Every time they go to school, I tell them I love them, I'm present, and even when I'm tired and exhausted, I do remind them, Mommy's a little tired right now, but when I wake up, it's okay to take a break. When I wake up, I'll be there. I'll listen to you, read the book. It's simple things, that help our kids, feel loved, and it really makes a change when you're just there. I, like the other day, my daughter, she invented this little game called How Well Do You Know Me? And I was like, okay, I know you a lot because I'm your mom, so I know you very well. And as she started asking the questions, what's my favorite color? And what's my favorite animal? And what's this and that? And I started saying the answers. She was like, no, Mom, that used to be. So I'm like, hold on. Now I'm interested because I have no idea who you are now. Tell me what's your favorite color. I want to know what's your favorite animal. What's your favorite book? What do you want to do? What you like? And the way she brightened up, she was so happy that I was there just listening to what she wanted and what she liked and what she wanted to do. I saw that and I'm like, okay, this is it feels right. You'll know when it feels right, what you're doing with them, you're going to know. Yeah. And when it's wrong, you definitely going to know too. Because your body's going to be like, there's something off, I'm doing something wrong, and even if they get me upset, I take a break. I try not to react as soon as something happens. I think about what happened, I reflect on what happened, and then I come up with an answer, or I'm like, come here, let's talk now. You know, even with my partner right now, you know, with my husband, I sometimes he's like, he flips, and I'm like, we don't do that like that, you know. No, but when I was a kid, that was when you was a kid. You know, now we're doing things different. I don't want to do it like, you know, when I was a kid. I want to do it different. I want to make that change. I want to be different, you know. And the way he sees me, he's like, wow. You have a lot of patience, and I don't have that. You know, I'm just used to doing it like this because that's how I remember it was done. You know, and I listened, and I did, and I'm like, just because you listen out of fear doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue into what I would add. I would want parents and caregivers to pour into their own mental health. And again, if your cup's not full, then you're not able to fill the cups of the children that you're near. And so one thing I love about this younger generation of parents, which is Jamie, because I'm the older generation, as you see with all this gray, it happens fast, is the commitment to mental health and people prioritizing that. And now we want to raise the awareness of children's mental health and creating like home environments that are peaceful and loving. And I love the concept of gentle parenting. Yes, kids need discipline, but the actual word of discipline means to teach.
Yes,
definitely.
It means to teach. And so creating an
redirect.
So creating an environment that is loving and kind and gentle and thoughtful and supportive will create a generation of children that think that way.
Well, right now that you say that, it reminds me about a week ago, my husband was trying to get my daughter to do something, and he was just being very strict. And I'm like, hold on, this is not how we're gonna do this. Just think back, you know, when you was a kid, do you think that was the right way to do it? Do you feel like you felt whole, like, okay, they're just teaching me, you know, no, I told her to do this, she has to do dishes, you gotta do dishes, and you gotta clean the counter, and you gotta, I'm like, you just telling her, how about you go with her? So this is how you clean the counter. This is how you clean the dishes. This is what you do after this, and just teach them instead of just giving them directions. Sometimes kids they just want to do a lot at the same time. So when you tell them something, they kind of wean off to something else they want to do. I have a daughter with ADHD, and when I tell her, go clean the dishes, she'll clean like 2 plates, and then she'll start playing with the water. And then we have a whole puddle on the floor, and then the soap is gone, and you know, you have to be there, like present. And I'm like, okay, you did 2 dishes, that was great, that was good. Let's try a little more. Let's do another one. Don't play with this, and it's just being there and guiding them. Like the guidance part is like the part we're forgetting.
I remember, you know, when we first started talking about adverse child experiences. You know, going back to what Eric said about a loving and gentle, you know, home that's, you know, without screaming, without yelling, without spanking, without, you know, all of those things. And I think sometimes people just need to be aware of that. I remember giving a workshop to parents, and one mom in particular, you know, she kind of realized, whoa, what she was doing with her kids. And it was interesting because she said, you know, I used to hate it when my mom used to call us names. You know, she would curse us out. Like, she would literally, like, curse us out like we were out in the streets somewhere. And she said, and I do the same thing with my kids. And she said, I got to stop doing that. Like, I got to stop. Like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I'm doing the same thing that my mom did with me. You know, and it was really interesting because we saw, like, this an enormous change in this mom, you know, and she said, you know, instead of calling them, you know, you little piece of whatever, you know, she started calling them son and daughter. And instead, she said, I couldn't think of anything else to call them, you know, other than their names. So I started calling them son and daughter. And she said, and I've seen like a big difference in my kids. So sometimes it's just bringing, again, that awareness to folks, you know, that they may not realize that what they're doing is damaging their kids. Because in an adverse child experience, even calling your kid, a bad name or cussing in front of them. There's all these little things that we don't think about, that could really cause harm to a child that can,
Yeah.
carry them for the rest of their lives. And so I thought that was really interesting. But again, just bringing awareness to folks, sometimes that's all you really have to do.
Yeah, and it goes into like our goal, like in this campaign, is around building a community that's infant mental health aware.
Aware, yeah.
And so that's why I'm out here talking to parents, teachers, early childhood educators, librarians, rec workers. Like, as I mentioned earlier, there'll never be enough mental health therapists. So we need to create a community where every single adult that comes in contact with kids understands the importance of early years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that by like having conversations with you here at
Yeah,
Poder.
yeah.
When Jamie talking to her friends,
Yeah.
other parents at schools,
Yeah.
and now Jamie has foundational aspects around infant mental health that she can share with her friends, that she shares with her partner.
Mhm.
Now Jamie's partner is reimagining what parenting looks like,
Yeah,
what family looks like.
yeah,
And now these kids that are in this environment where love, support, and nurture is the foundation will then become parents that introduce those concepts to
yeah,
their kids.
yeah,
And so that's really what this is really all about, is creating an environment that's infant mental health aware, that we understand how important
Yeah.
those early years are. I mean, Frederick Douglass said it best in 1865, it is
Mhm.
easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Broken man.
And
Yes.
Tupac, another great rapper,
Mhm.
in 1993, I believe, did an interview, and he had a tattoo on his stomach that said "Thug Life."
Mm.
But what it actually stood for was the hate you give little infants F's everybody.
Wow.
Meaning what you feed to us as babies either
Yeah.
blossoms
Yeah.
or explodes.
Explodes.
So
yeah.
what we give to these babies, it's either
Yeah.
going to turn into a flower or it's going to
Yeah.
turn into a bomb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
It's
planting
up to
that
us.
seed of
Yeah.
love. So when they grow, they're
Mhm.
able to, blossom into this beautiful person.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once you plant that seed,
Yeah.
the wrong seed, it
Yeah.
affects their self-esteem.
Yeah.
It affects everything about a human. And I don't
Yeah.
think people realize how important this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I think back, like I shared a story about how I was with my children when they were sick because it was the way my mom was.
Mhm.
I remember, so my oldest daughter is China. She's 20, she'll be 28 in February. It's
Mhm.
crazy. Uh, she might have been 16 when I came home for my infant mental health training, and I
Mm.
sat the whole family down
Mm.
and I apologized because I
Mm.
had learned about ghosting in the nursery.
Yeah.
So it is beautiful that I had that awareness, but my children's entire formative years
Mm.
were treated the way my formative years were
Yeah.
treated.
Yeah.
So now I have to be extra aware of my children as they become parents
Yeah.
because they were trained. They were already trained. Their brain was
Yeah.
already wired on like how to
Yeah.
deal with when someone's
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to do extra to undo that, to be
Mhm.
Yeah.
that whisper in their ear, reminding them of how not
Mhm.
to be.
Yeah.
And so like I honestly care, like I carry that weight. Like I think about although I have no
Mm.
grandkids, that is on my mind.
Mhm. Yeah.
That I trained my kids on how you handle your kids when
Mhm.
you're sick.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to be extra vigilant,
Yeah.
not for them not to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But that's part of the process. Like I'm not a perfect dad. I was a good dad, and I still am a good dad.
Mhm.
But it's never too late for me to reinvent myself
Yeah.
and become the best dad ever. And so
Yeah.
one of my
Or the best
messages,
granddad.
granddad,
ever.
yeah.
I think I'm the best grandma
Yes,
ever.
yes. And so it's never too late for us to reimagine the way we interact with kids.
Yeah, definitely.
I think when people think about how do you fix what you're broken as a parent, to me, I usually do little meetings with my kids separately. And I ask them questions like, are you happy? Are you okay? Is there anything that you would like to change? Even when I do something wrong, and I know I was wrong, I apologize to my kids.
Yeah.
Some parents are like, apologizing to a kid?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's not about having power. It's about respecting them as a person.
Exactly.
And they'll
Exactly.
respect you
Yeah.
as a parent.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing.
Well, and how would you model apologizing if you don't apologize to them? Like, how would you model that, right? You have to model those things. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. I think about infants and how vulnerable they are, right? They're totally dependent on the adults around them, and how we interact with infants will create whether they're gonna fight, flight, or so kids totally depend on us. So we have to give them an environment where they can trust the adults around them, where they can feel that they're being cared for, that they're, if they're hungry, they're going to be fed. If they're wet, they're going to be dried. If they're sick, they're going to be taken care of. If they're feeling anything, that they're going to be comforted. Those things kids learn from us. So if we're not giving that to our kids from the minute that they're born, then how are they going to learn that, right? They're going to have those feelings, those emotions. They're going to be aware of their environment based on what we give them.
Yes.
And so if they lack any of those things, then they're going to constantly be like this, right? Like ready to fight, ready to defend themselves, ready to take on the world, because that's how they were taught from a very young age. So, going back to the love from the start, I mean, you can't say it any better, right? That's where it starts. It has to start day one. Day one.
Yeah, and I think and you're actually making me think about something. In the infant mental health world, there's an experiment called the still face experiment. If you go on YouTube, you can Google it.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying, that video is about, like children. So to kind of give people an idea, they have a parent playing with their child and interacting, and the give and take, and the child is interacting. Then a therapist asks the parent to turn away from the child and not interact. And within 2 minutes, the child completely breaks down. They're so dependent on that love and that nurture, which allows them to try new things, to crawl, to stand up, to start saying words. And when the parent takes that energy away and turns away, the child breaks down almost instantly. And so I think as adults, we don't understand how important our interaction with children is, and how important healthy interaction with our children can be.
Now that you mention that, Eric, my daughter had a little breakdown the other day. I was exhausted. I was sitting on the couch, and she was like calling my name. She's like, "Mom, Mom," but I'm here like falling asleep. And all of a sudden, she gets up really angry and goes up the stairs. Oh, nobody listens to me. And then she went up, and I just heard her crying upstairs. I'm like, let me get up. I'm exhausted, but let me get up. And I went upstairs, and I'm like, why are you having a breakdown? What happened? Oh, because I'm calling your name because I wanted you to look at me and listen to me because I wanted to tell you something. And I'm like, I'm sorry, mommy. I was really tired. I didn't even hear you. I couldn't even hear her because I was so tired. And she was like, she started smiling. I'm like, don't be upset at me. I still love you. I love you. I'm just exhausted. But what did you want to tell me? Talk to me now. And then she proceeded to tell me what was happening. It was just something small. Oh, I was watching.
But big for her. Something big for her. But big for her.
But big for her. And I try to explain this to my husband. Well, to you it's nothing. To them it's like everything.
Everything.
When she has these little breakdowns where she doesn't know how to, say what she wants to say. She's getting into this. She's 10. She's getting to the stage where she's growing, and all these emotions and hormones are coming in, and she doesn't know how to react. And she might come off, and you ask her something, and she'll say it in a way that you're like, who are you talking to? and I'm like, why are you talking like? She's like, oh, I don't know. I just wanted to say that this and this. It's stopping and just trying to listen to her instead of I could have chose to scream at her. I could have chose to get really upset. Why are you talking to me like that? And I chose not to, and I just listened to her, and then she came down. All that energy just and she took a breather. She was able to speak to me, normally.
There's 5 components to your campaign. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So again, that early relationships matter, and we definitely talked about that. We talked about Frederick Douglass, Tupac, how those early years are everything. And again, I'll remind people it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And actually, it makes financial sense because for every dollar you invest in the early years, I think the return is like 6. So it makes sense for our political leaders, our community-based organizations to invest in early years. It's cheaper.
It's cheaper.
It makes sense.
They don't get it, but it's true, Eric.
Yes. And that early experiences shapes the child's brain. We absolutely talked about that. We talked about the still-faced experiment and the kids need to have interaction with
Yeah.
adults. We talked about play and how that is the brain's preferred way to learn.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to say, for the early relationship matters, I want to bring this experience, for everybody that's listening. I was raised on, if a baby cries, just let it cry. It'll turn, it'll go back to sleep on its own. And what people are not realizing is the baby's with you 9 months inside of you. You're taking care of this baby inside. It feels safe. Once it's outside, it's like, what's happening? Where I'm at?
Yeah.
Where's mommy?
Yeah.
And before my first kid, I raised it like that, and that was wrong. With this one and my past one, I realized that when the baby was crying, I was there immediately. The baby came down fast.
Yeah, that's
went
where
to
they
sleep
find the
fast.
trust. Yeah.
It felt safe,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like a crying baby. Like the experience was so different of you responding to the baby. When it's not because it's a baby means it's not gonna learn anything. It doesn't know anything because it's a baby.
Yeah, they do.
They do. Like they know a lot, and that I don't feel like a lot of people realize that. They tell me if the baby cries, just let her cry. She'll go back to sleep. No, like I'm the mom. I'm gonna be there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put her to sleep,
Yeah.
and she's gonna feel safe. It starts from there. You build, that baby feeling safe with you from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we also talked about a calm, caring home environment is everything for a child to feel safe, loved, supported, nurtured, pretty much the way Jamie was just talking about.
Yeah.
Parents caring for themselves, like we don't do enough self-care. And which there's so many things about this younger generation that challenges me, but there's also just as much that I love about them, and they're about their self-care.
Oh, yeah.
They are about their mental health.
Yeah.
They're about their self-care.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that about this younger generation, and they are unapologetically about their self-care.
Yeah.
Me, like, because you need to have that mentality sometimes, because then it allows you to be the best for the people that you care about.
Right.
And then I mentioned just a while ago about how community is everything. There will never be enough therapists, social workers, early childhood educators to raise the awareness of how important these early years are. So we need an army of parents like Jamie, like myself, out here talking to people about how early years is everything.
Yeah.
And not just for my kids or for my future grandkids, but for Jamie's kids.
Yeah.
For your grandchildren,
for my
for Johnny's family.
Yeah.
Like we really need to raise awareness on how important community is in this goal of creating an environment where children can thrive.
Yeah.
And be loved.
If people want to know more about the campaign or be part of the campaign, or maybe, I don't know if there's trainings that's available for parents that may be interested, how can they go about that?
Yeah, so first I'll start with the trainings. The Society of Protection and Care for Children, SPCC, has trainings on infant mental health all the time. And I'm one of the facilitators for that. So if you decide you want to learn more, you get to spend time with me. It's about 8 weeks, about 16 hours, and it's just powerful. You can also go to our website at lovefromthestart.org. There's a bunch of resources there.
A lot of information.
Lots and lots of information. You can go to our social media, healthykids.org. You can also look at us on Instagram, Facebook. And so there you'll find links to more opportunities. Like I talk about it. What we're trying to do is add more tools to a parent's toolkit. So they can have as many tools as possible. And not just parents, caregivers, aunties,
everybody.
Grandparents,
the
neighborhood uncle,
teachers, anybody.
Really trying to give as many adults that love children and want to support them as many tools as possible for them to be successful. But I would love for someone to take training with us and just open the world of infant early childhood mental health.
Sometimes all it takes is for you to reshape how you parent.
Yeah. Now, Eric, is any of these opportunities or trainings available in Spanish for Spanish-speaking parents?
So that is a good question, and it's something that I advocate. There is not enough.
Okay.
There is not enough, and that breaks my heart because 1 in 3 RCSD kids comes from a Spanish-speaking family. That number continues to go up. While as Black people, our number goes down. So I'm trying to be very intentional about that and challenging organizations, even my own, to actually be the best that we can be on that.
Okay.
I recently partnered with the Child Care Council on some infant early childhood mental health trainings, and almost everyone that participated was a Spanish speaker.
Yeah.
And I felt that instantly. Like, we need to be in this space with Spanish speakers.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for raising that. It's just another reminder is that we're not doing enough, and that's not good enough, and it's not acceptable.
Yeah. I might have you come back and we'll do this entire show again in Spanish.
Yeah, I would
just
love
because the hour went by and we didn't really go back to Spanish speaking. But, I think it's really important, that I advocated at RELC to do the CDA in Spanish. So I offer it in Spanish and I offer it in English for that same reason, right?
Yeah.
Because we have a growing population, a lot of people that want to go into early childhood, but I know the Child Care Council used to offer the CDA in Spanish, and then their person got promoted and they weren't offering it anymore. And so I felt the need to take that on. Not that I needed more responsibilities, but I took it on because I felt that it was important to be able to train people in their native language, that were looking into going into the field. And I feel that the early childhood field, not because it's been my career and it's been everything that I've known all my life, but early childhood is really an important field, and I think the whole country, the whole world felt that, during COVID and how important it was to have childcare providers during that time. But, the work that early childhood folks do is so, so important, and this is the reason why. Right, because we need to show these babies love from the very start. Yes. And so I love the campaign. I love what it stands for. Yes. I love that you guys are coming out here and bringing this awareness to our community. I really want to reach out to moms that just had a baby
and dads,
right? Because now knowing this information that dads also suffer from postpartum depression. That there's help.
Yeah.
That there's answers, that you're not alone, that there's tools, right? There's strategies, there's information, there's training, like all that stuff that sometimes people feel alone, but you're not. And to bring this awareness to our community is so important. I love everything about it, Eric. I love it.
Yeah. So and now I will tell you, we have print material in Spanish. But we also need people talking about this in Spanish. So we did receive a grant that will fund a Spanish speaker to bring this into the Spanish community more. We're working on that, and I'm always in the background with my palm on the back saying, let's get this going. That actually was my idea to do that.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you both for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Not sure if there's anything you want to say quickly before we head out, or do you feel we covered everything?
I would just say that, like, I appreciate parents like Jamie Maldonado, who just embraces it and she reimagines what parenting looks like.
Yeah.
It's inspiring, and it's going to be parents like Jamie that change this.
Yeah.
And change their neighborhood and their circle. So
their community.
Yeah, I just really appreciate parents like Jamie.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Now, I like to close the show by asking if there's a phrase or a saying that you grew up with that still resonates with you today. And I'm hoping you both have one.
There's a couple. I'm trying to think. Now that you're asking me, I don't know. Oh, there's a couple that my mom. Just give me a second, Jamie.
I'll take it. So for me, my grandma taught me a Bible verse. It was from Psalms 91, and it talks about God's protection and how even when you're scared, God protects you, and you'll always be protected by God.
Yeah.
So that to me, I carried it. I learned it since I was like 5, and I carried that my whole life with me. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I'm actually embarrassed because I repeat these sayings that my mom says all the time, and I just drew a blank.
But I really like the one from Frederick Douglass.
Oh,
like if you
yeah.
can repeat that one, because I think that's really, and it really ties in with everything that we've been talking about. So if you could just repeat that one again.
Absolutely. And I do use this all the time.
Yeah.
It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Yes. And I think that's really important. And I've heard that one before many times, and I really love it because it's absolutely true, right?
Yeah.
And in going back to both of you, right? I mean, love is love, right? And God is love.
Amen.
And really love, world runs around love. That's the way that I see it and the way that I feel.
Yes.
And it's something that I try to project in everything that I do, whether it's, I put my love and my heart into everything that I do, regardless of what it is. And again, I love this campaign. I love what it stands for. Please allow us to be, a voice for you guys. You guys are welcome to come back.
Thank you.
At any given time to talk about this, to tell us the progress, to tell us where you are with it, whether you bring more parents to be able to be a voice, however we can help you bring the word out. I think it's really important. And if again, people want to get a hold of you, Eric, where can they, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so lovefromthestart.org will link you to our website. And honestly, if you want to learn more about the work I'm doing, particularly call me at 585-729-5970. That's 585-729-5970. This work that we're doing, this campaign, thank you for asking me again. It was built by parents for parents. So parents like Jamie helped design the logo, the colors, the messaging, the pictures. It's on billboards, it's on websites, it's on PBS, it was on Channel 8. It was built for and by parents.
Cool.
So we have work groups if parents are interested in being a part of that.
Yeah.
We meet regularly. We actually compensate our parents for their expertise. So if you're a parent or a grandparent or auntie or uncle and you want to get more involved, we have opportunities. And call me. Text me, 585-729-5970.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en esta mañana. Lo esperamos nuevamente el próximo sábado de 10 a 11 de la mañana en Poder 97.1 FM, la única estación radial latina con dueños y operados por latinos, por la comunidad, para la comunidad. Esto ha sido su hora informativa, trayendo la información importante que esperamos que los inspire a una mejor calidad de vida. Que pasen una linda semana. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.
Thank you.
Thank you.